The Powers Project.
Ant, how are you, sir?
Man, I am doing fantastic. Happy Thursday to you, Kurt.
Happy Thursday to you. You look like you're doing fantastic, and I'm going to tell you, I am excited about having you on the show. I've had a lot of great guests and on the show, and I've loved every one of them, even the ones I don't necessarily agree with on some things, but I enjoy having them on. But I was really looking forward to having you on because you're such a positive person, and it exudes from you. And I think that we need more people like you in the world. Honestly,
Man, I appreciate that, Kurt.
it means everything to everyone because I was in Target today, and there was a cashier
Mm.
there, this young lady, just a young lady, and she asked me how I was doing. I said good, and I said how are you? And she's like, I'm doing great. I'm having a magical day, and I go a magical day. And she goes yes, and I go what made it magical? She goes I get to make money for free. And apparently she wasn't supposed to work today, but they called her.
Okay.
So she was happy that she got called in to make more money. And I was like, what a great way to look at things, you know? And she was just such a pleasure. She had such an amazing personality. I go, you know, we need that so much in this world today with all the negativity that's out there. And so
Bro, for
that's why
real.
I was so happy to have you as a guest on the show today. So um, I don't normally
Pleasure to be here, Kurt.
I don't normally do this before the show because I usually put a description, but I'm going to go over a few things here. Aunt Blair, not
That's
Les
me.
Aunt, but Aunt. You are a seasoned business owner. You created the first digital advertising agency in 1997. You're an experienced professional speaker and having won many Toastmaster speaking competitions, as well as earning the Dale Carnegie highest award for achievement. You
Yep.
also share the access code, which I want to talk about in a little bit. The access
Right
code
on.
to unlock the unlimited potential of African American, Black, and Brown people in a TEDx talk. You're also a community activist. You've served on many boards as well as city commissioner. You created the first craft beer themed fundraiser of its kind, raising enough money to provide Christmas gifts for over 800 children, which is amazing.
Hmm.
And on
Yeah, it
top of
was
all of
great.
this, as if you hadn't done enough, you want to end racism for good. So
I
that's what your
do.
focus is on. I was like,
I do.
this is a man who's on a mission. So
Gotta be, man. We gonna die one day.
yeah, exactly. So where do you find all this energy?
Man, I to be honest, I have no clue. I really don't. I I've always been energetic, and people will say, where do they will say the same thing that you just said. Where do you get all your energy from? And I say, I really don't know. If I had to think about it though, it's just the joy of life. Just like I said, we're gonna be dead one day. So I mean, if that ain't enough to get you out of bed and get you cranked up about some things, I don't know what will.
Right. Well, so what do you say to people? Because I've I haven't done the things that you've done. I've done things in the where in my job and everything, and teaching people how to be positive and how to see themselves in a positive way and accept responsibility. It You ever come across those people that no matter how many ways you give them to be positive or to achieve things, they've got more excuses than you have answers. And no matter what answer you give them, they're always going to have an excuse. Have you dealt with those people, and how do you deal with those people?
Kurt, hell yes. It grinds my gears. It really does. It grinds my gears. If you ask anybody who knows me, they will tell you I do not get down with the excuses. I just
Right.
don't. Now, so on the one hand, I'm sympathetic to folks when they say, "Oh, you know, this, that, or the other thing happened, or I experienced this, or whatever." I'm the type of guy who says, "Okay, I understand that you experienced that, you went through that, whatever the case may be, but what are you gonna do about it? What are you gonna do next?" I'm always trying to get people to get out of that space and get into a future space. Now, there's some people who won't ever get out of that space, and it is what it is.
Right.
I don't I don't let that spill over into my world. And I try to do the best that I can to model forward progress and no excuses. If I fail, if I mess up, hey, I failed, I messed up. You know, if that happens, I accept that and believe that I think I'm smart enough. I think I'm innovative enough. I think I have enough within me to get past those things. If I can't motivate or if I can't inject somebody with some positivity, if I can't get a person to see a better future, I accept that and then try and model it in my own life. That's part of why I do all the shit that I do. Because if people look at me and say, man, damn, look at what Ant's doing. And I say, yeah, look at what I'm doing. But you know what? You can be doing that and then some.
Right.
So, you know, what, come on, let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. I'm the guy who's let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go.
Well,
And so I guess to answer your question is I try to encourage and inspire people to stay on the move, keep it moving, keep moving forward, keep achieving, keep striving. Don't dwell in whatever negative pops up from you trying to do whatever it is you believe that you are put here on the earth to do. Just keep going. Just keep going. One foot in front of the other. Just keep going.
exactly. Even if you make 3 steps forward and 2 steps back, you're still one step ahead of where you were. That's the way I
Come
look.
on, man. Man, Paula Abdul even knew that.
Exactly. I talk about dating yourself.
I know, man. But wasn't Paula Abdul hot though? Come on, man.
Yeah, she was back in the day. I mean, I guess
Back in the day.
still is. I mean, but she's always been a little cray cray though to me. I just thought she's, you know, I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough. Fair enough. Fair enough. But I could probably look past the cray cray for a minute. Just for a minute.
um, One of the things that I think that you teach when you're talking to people, because you're a speaker, you speak for different corporations and stuff, and you go around the world as a speaker, and you don't just talk about eliminating race, but you also talk about being positive and those things that to
Definitely.
reach your goals and how to do those things. And how do you feel that when you go to these places, how do you feel people accept your message? Do you feel like there's a thirst out there for this message with all the negativity that's going on in the world, that they finally have someone stand up there going, hey, the world isn't going to end tomorrow, and here's what you do?
Yeah, for real, man. They do, because there's so much negativity out there for some positivity to break through. People are like, whoa. And I'll tell you, Kurt, it it's contagious and it's attractive to people. And I believe that if people want to break through the noise in the world, there's so many people want to be influencers, this, that,
Right.
and other
Yeah.
thing, IG famous, all that. And I'm certainly not speaking disparagingly to people who live that life or who want to live that life. My encouragement to those folks who want to be influencers and live the influencer life, the way to break through is to be positive. It really is, to and be authentically positive. You know what I'm saying? Don't
Right.
don't don't bullshit it.
Right.
Be positive and be authentically positive. Don't just post a quote or say the quote that somebody else said, but just really embrace that idea, embrace that way of life, embrace that feeling. Man, I wake up every day on fire. Why? Because, man, I know that there are opportunities in the world. And I think that's really the key, is that people who think negatively don't see all of the opportunities that the world can provide. The world is a big place, and its opportunities abound, and it's being open to, being receptive to, looking out for the opportunities that create the positivity. Because boy, is it doesn't matter what's going on in the world. If it's crashing and burning, there's still an opportunity out there
That's
for good, for being positive, for making an impact, for affecting a person's life. There's always opportunities.
I agree, and I think you you hit it on the head because here's the thing: people will only see what they believe is out there.
That's right.
And
That's right.
I did a little experiment a few years ago.
Do tell.
I what I did was this: is I wanted to take a belief I had and I wanted to put it to the test to see if that belief was true or not. And so I
What
did
was it? What
something.
was the belief?
It was like I said, there aren't many purple cars in Orlando.
The
So I
fuck
wanted
out
to
of
go
here.
out. No, I wanted to
Really?
see something silly and stupid. I went because I didn't see purple cars anywhere. So I go, I just don't believe
Okay.
there are many purple cars. The first day I noticed like 8 or 9 cars. And I was only going to run this for 2 days. The second day, I noticed 20 purple cars. Well, I was done.
No.
I was done with the experiment, except that I wasn't apparently because the next day, I swear to God, it looked like cars had multiplied overnight and just reproduced purple cars everywhere I looked. There were purple cars, and I was even like, I wouldn't count the cars that were sort of reddish purple or anything. I know it had to be purple, and so I was like, where the hell are all these purple cars coming from? But it was because my mind was open to seeing those cars. And
Yes.
it's that simple. If our minds are open to seeing the opportunities, like you said, you'll see them. But if you don't believe
Exactly.
they're there, you're never going to see them. You're
Exactly.
you're very much like I know you know who Dr. Dennis Kimbrough is, and you're
Oh
very
yeah.
on the Save Wingleys. He said, there are more opportunities today than there ever have been in the history of mankind, and he's absolutely right.
Facts.
There's people out there you can't convince them of that. So,
It's true, Kurt, and that's what pains me is people just having that mindset. And I ask myself, I say, where do these people where do people get these ideas from? Where do they come from? Where in their life history, where in their life history did someone or something pop up on their radar screen, tell them whatever it was to convince them you have no opportunities, you have no potential, you're where you're at is where you're going to be, and you better sit there and like it. It is mind boggling to me how many people sit in the lane of, oh, woe is me, oh, blah blah blah. And to your point, like you said, the Dr. Kimbrough, it's opportunities everywhere, but it really only takes just a little shift in thinking. I mean, it's not like a big old paradigm shift. It's just the way of looking at the world. It's like, man, so what's out there for me? And like you said, for you, you do like, hey, purple, purple cars. And then all of a sudden you start seeing a gang of purple cars once you start looking for purple cars. And to your point, yes, opportunities are the same exact way. But the key is though knowing what opportunities to take and what opportunities to pass, right?
right. And knowing what's right for you because that's going to be different for
Exactly.
everybody. And you're absolutely right. Um, One of the things I wanted to ask you because uh, we do know that people who are younger now they're being told constantly you don't have the opportunities that my generation had. Now
Right.
I may agree with that. I may go, yeah, the opportunities that were me. I don't think that. I think you have greater opportunities. It may be harder to get to those opportunities than it was for us, but that doesn't mean the opportunities don't exist. And I think there's a push by media or whoever to tell
Mm.
certain groups of people, oh, you're being kept down.
Mm-hmm.
Don't have the opportunities other people had. So you have a reason to complain. You have a reason to be mad at people.
Mm-hmm.
You have a reason not to do anything. And I don't think that's by accident. I think it's to
I
keep
agree.
people in that mindset, to keep them down from believing that they can do something with their lives. How do you feel about that?
Dude, yeah, yeah, of course. You gonna go down a rabbit trail or a rabbit hole with this one. But yeah, because the people who have don't want to give up what they have. So if you keep people thinking that they can't get, then you get to have more,
Right.
right?
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? And I'll tell you, Kurt, I have a 25-year-old son. Shout out to my son. I from a very early age, I told him you can do, you can have, you can be, can. You can. And I
Yep.
think there's not enough of that you can out there because, to be quite honest, you start getting people believing in themselves and going after it and waking up and being on fire and getting theirs. The people who already got theirs or want to get more, that's less for them to get or less for them to have. And I said, well, who is them? Blah blah blah. That's a whole nother discussion.
Right.
But just saying, yeah, it's and what's crazy, Kurt, is the the only thing that's limited is natural resources, right? We only have so much water, we only have so much land, we only have so much precious metals, we only have so much of that. But quote unquote money, man, how much money did they throw into the economy during COVID? What, like six
Right.
trillion, $8 trillion or something crazy like that, man. Money ain't the problem.
No, well, they
And
made
it's
that
getting
money
people.
up, so it don't matter. It's all
That's what I'm saying, man. I got my PPP loan. Man, the dude was like, uh, look at your bank account tomorrow, and the money will be there. I never touched it, Kurt. It's like it's zeros and ones. It's like it's not even real. So I say to people, I'm like, look, there's never, to your point earlier, there's never been a better time to go out and get yours because the resources, the financial, the economic, the resources, abundant, abundant.
right. And
And people, go ahead.
I'm sorry. I was going to say, and the people who are wealthy understand that. They understand.
Exactly.
They don't make any excuses. They don't go, oh well, it's there's no way I can get. They know, yes, I can get mine, and I know exactly how to do it. And they're open to it, and so they take every advantage that's given to them. What I find to be funny is that common people will be okay with banks raping the American public of trillions of dollars, that we had to bail
Oh
them
my
out.
gosh, I know.
Bail them out. No one
Bail them
says
out.
no one says a word. But let someone who's just a common person take advantage of a situation that they can finally take advantage of, and they're trying to make them feel like, oh, you're crap. You're just the worst of humankind. I go, so you mean to tell me someone who can go back to work but chooses not to because they're actually going to get paid more in unemployment,
For real.
you're gonna try to make them feel bad about that, when for the first time in decades they've actually be able to get a foot up maybe a little bit and make a little extra money and not and benefit from the system that has screwed them for decades, and you're mad at them, but you're not mad at the businesses who will pay them nothing. Why are people so greedy and so jealous that that they don't care if corporations steal from them, but let your neighbor make $1 more than you do, and you're up in arms about it. That oh man, that drives me crazy when I think of people like that. Seriously.
It does, man. It's just it's ridiculous and unnecessary. But I'll say this: when I got my stimulus checks and PPP loan and all that kind of stuff that everybody else got.
Mhm.
Now I can't say everybody else got the PPP loan. You got to be a business, and so there were some parameters on that. And people need to get behind the idea of becoming a business, whether or not you do anything with it or not. But just having the legal entity
Right.
creates opportunity. So that's over here. how many people did I see when the stimulus checks start coming out, or the stimulus debit cards? I mean, some people got cars, some people got the direct deposits and whatnot. How many, the majority of people just basically just blew the money, right? How many 70-inch screen TV boxes did I see on the side of the street, when all that happened? But what's interesting is I read an article on LinkedIn maybe about 2 or 3 weeks ago that talked about how banks are like, oh my God, some people actually took that money and paid off their credit cards, paid down their loans, invested it in some way. And the banks now are like, oh, we ain't getting no interest.
Right.
We need to start giving everybody an opportunity to get credit so we can start making that money again, because the people who got the money and actually has some wherewithal to say, I'm not going to get the 70-inch. I'm going to pay down this credit card. Or I'm going to pay, extra on the mortgage or the car payment or whatever.
Right.
And the banks are like, oh, we ain't getting the interest now. They're like, oh, hey, do you need some credit? We'll give you some credit. Your credit score might be low, but we'll give you some credit. It's if people could, if the majority of the people who got that money played it smartly, boy, how much further could they be ahead? But the folks who dropped the money down knew at large that people are just gonna waste it,
Right.
so to speak. So that's why they call it stimulus, right? So they throw the stimulus money out to stimulate the economy, which was trash during the height of the pandemic last year. Hey, we got to get people spending money on stuff.
That's exactly.
And they knew, yeah, so they know, oh, well, if we throw the money out there, most people going to spend it on stuff, and it's basically going to go back to where it came from.
That's exactly what happens. That's why Dr. Kimbrough talked about. He said, when he was talking about reparations, he goes, "I don't want reparations." He goes,
no, sir.
It'll end up back in the hands of the people who had it within a couple of months, if not sooner. And he's absolutely right.
Exactly.
He said, you want to make a difference, then you get these Fortune 500 companies to invest in black-owned banks. That will stimulate the economy for black people. He goes, that's how you help black people, not give them reparations where they'll end up blowing it. And because if you're not educated financially, and this isn't just black people, this is
That's
people
the
as a
thing.
whole.
People at large.
Yeah, at large. I mean, that's why you get people who win the lottery and be broke within a couple of years. You go, how the hell do you win millions of dollars?
Professional athletes.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if and that's the thing. The American people they're not taught how to handle money because they're taught to be consumers. That's why we are
Exactly.
a consumer driven country in the world, with 300 million people, and we buy more than everybody else, probably close, combined, because we spend so much money and debt. And I tell people, I go, why do you think every spring break, every major credit card company down there at spring break is giving these kids credit cards? You don't have to, you just sign your name. Here's a credit card. They don't give a damn. As long as they got your information, they don't care what you did beforehand, because they know now they got you hooked, because they got your parents hooked. They know.
That's right.
And they go, that's how they started. They don't want you to be educated. They don't want you to be responsible. They want you paying that interest, like you said, every month. They want you to make that minimum payment so that only 30% of it goes.
That's right.
So
that's right. That's right. That's right. And that's so crazy, man. And to be honest, I ain't a fan of banks. I'm not. I stuff my stuff under the mattress. I ain't gonna lie. And people be like, man, I talk to people and I tell them, I say, look, think about this. The banks, we put our money in the bank, and the bank takes our money without our permission and uses those deposits to make money for them.
Yes, they do.
I mean, that's how it works. And so I'm like, go ahead.
While paying you nothing.
Ain't paying you nothing. No interest, no interest, no dividends, no nothing, man. I remember when I first got married. I'm not married now, but when I first got married, my wife and I was like, "Ooh, let's put our money in a CD. We'll get like 1.5% or something stupid like that." Man, it's comical. You're laughing, I'm laughing. That's how they make money. And what people what one of the things that I would love to do when you talk about financial literacy and things like that, yeah, get credit, but leverage that credit. Use other people's money to make more money.
Right.
Don't go out and buy the 70-inch screen TV. Don't go out and buy the $500 pair of Jordans. Don't go out and buy don't consume.
Right.
Create more than you consume. If you can get somebody else's money to create something that will benefit you financially, that's the move with credit. They call that leverage.
Yes.
And if you can take that and turn, if you can turn them dollars into, if you can turn other people's dollars into dollars for yourself, that's the move. Don't buy stuff that don't have any value or depreciates as soon as you pull it off for the showroom floor, drive it off the lot, all that. And the principles are basic. And I mean, I ain't, it's not like I was always woke. You know, it's not like I always knew this. When I understood how money actually works, to your point about financial literacy, when I understood how it works, I was like, man, I've been fucking up for years.
You
Didn't even know. Didn't even know.
is that once you wake up to it, if you don't do something about it and you keep spending,
That's right.
that and I've seen that happen, and I think that's part of the problem is that, some of these people are starting to wake up, but they're still not
Mm-hmm.
doing anything differently, and then they wonder why they're still broke, and it's like, you're busy
Mm-hmm.
trying to keep up with the Joneses, but you don't realize the
Mm-hmm.
Joneses are broke as you are. They're everything's on
That's
credit.
right.
So, but
That's right. You ever go ahead, Kurt?
no, I was gonna say you're absolutely right.
Have you ever read The Millionaire Next Door?
I did
It's
many.
an OG book.
Yes, yes, it is. It was many years ago I read it, but you're right. To your point, it talks about how the average millionaire lives. I have a client who's a
Exactly.
millionaire. You you wouldn't know it. I mean,
Yep.
he has a very. I mean, he's got a nice little home, but it's a little home. The
Right.
only thing that could tell you that he has any money is that he drives a Tesla. But other than that, the way he
Mm.
dresses, he doesn't wear jewelry. He does, he's very like if he walked into a store, you go, oh, he's just average Joe. He don't have anything, but he's a millionaire. But you don't know that.
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, The Millionaire Next Door is a great book. Uh, I'd encourage people to read it now that you brought it up because you're
Yeah,
right.
most definitely. Most definitely. And here's the thing. Why don't why why don't kids get taught this in school? I mean, I don't know. Is it the parents' responsibility to teach them this stuff? But if you're asking me, I'm saying, well, heck, if you teach me reading, writing, arithmetic, and economics, I'm good. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I don't what am I gonna do with algebra? What am I gonna do with trigonometry? I don't need that to count money.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? I don't need that to count money, but I need to know how to count money. But you don't teach me that.
Well, and they don't teach you what money is, and they don't teach you how to use it wisely. And you're right. The unfortunate thing is they don't want you to know. They want you to be.
That's right.
They want you to, just like the corporations. Corporations love when you get married and have a kid and buy a house because now you're stuck with them. You can't just up and leave
Mm-hmm.
your job if you no longer like it. There's a system that's set up
Mm-hmm.
to make us into drone workers, and that's what we are.
That's right.
And I
That's
say
right.
that's what most people are. That's not what you are. That's not what I am. Because I realized this a long time ago, and I was like, yeah, you know,
Facts.
I'll tell you. You know what I realized when I was 16 years old, I was making $5 a yard when I was 12. $5 a yard. I'd go around to my neighbors. There's a long time ago when I was 12, but I'd go mow my neighbor's yard. $5. $5. I
Yep.
work Saturday and Sunday. I make for me, it was a lot of damn money. I'd have like
Yeah, it
40
was.
$40 or more in my pockets on the weekends. First job I went to was Burger Chef. You know what they paid me?
Oh, Burger Chef. Oh, dude. I do remember Burger Chef.
They paid me $1.98 an hour. $1.98 because I
Ridiculous.
was a student.
Ridiculous.
They didn't even have to pay me minimum wage. They could pay me under minimum wage. They found a way to screw me because I was a student. My
That's
check,
right.
my check after 2 weeks was like $40. I'm like, what? I was making more when I was
Exactly.
12 years old working for myself than I am for some
Exactly.
corporation. That's when I realized, yeah, I ain't gonna be working for someone else the rest of my life. So
Kurt, man, facts. I was 15 when my mom, she made sure, so back in our day, you could sign, the parents could sign the paper. I mean, maybe they still do that. I don't know. But my mom signed the paper when I was 15 to to where I had consent from my parents to go work. And then I went and I started working at the local grocery store. Back in the day, mugs used to sack groceries, used to sort bottles. They didn't have a bottle sorting machines. It was manual labor, right? So I'm doing this. And I remember the point when I knew that I wasn't going to work for a person at some point in my life. There was this cat, I won't say his name, but I remember he was my manager. There were three managers in the store. The top manager was a cool dude. He was the one who hired me. And then the dude who was the middle manager, he was all right too. But the lowest manager, he was just an asshole, man. He really was. That was the dude who I saw the most because he was the lower level dude. And I remember thinking to myself, some of the decisions that he made and some of the things that he said, I said to myself, I ain't gonna never, if as soon as I can, I am not going to work for cats like this. I got an early introduction into management. And I was like, man, I ain't trying to be managed by somebody. And I'm like 16 at this point, 16, 17. And I'm saying to myself, ain't no way that I'm going to be an underling to people like this. And
right.
that was the trigger for me. Like how you was like, man, I went to Burger Chef, they was paying me crap and I was making more money independently. And I was like, man, I am not going to work for no asshole.
And you know what?
And that was the catalyst.
I don't care what company you work for. Every company has that asshole. Every one of them.
That's right.
Because I've worked for a few companies. I remember the very last one I worked for. We were a company that we promoted stocks, and
Okay.
and so if you've ever dealt with stockbrokers or guys who are in that industry, majority of them, well, I won't say majority of them, I don't know the majority of them. The ones I dealt with were assholes. And the two guys
Mm-hmm.
who owned this company, one of them was on a power trip. And he said, and so he wanted us to come in at like 7 in the morning for no reason. I mean, really, there was no reason other than he could make us come in at 7 in the morning.
Dude, the market ain't even jumping off till 8:30.
I know. You can't, yeah, don't get me started on that. Someone was complaining about coming in at 7 in the morning, and we were having a meeting. He said, "From 7 a.m. to 5 p.m., you're my bitches." And I looked
Really?
right at him. Nobody said a damn thing except me. I go, "I know you're not talking to me."
Good for you, man.
He goes, "No, Kurt, I'm not talking to you." So he
That's what I thought.
exactly, because I would walk my ass right out of that damn place right then and there because I had enough dignity to go, no one's going to talk to me that way. But that was the last job I ever had working for someone
No
else.
kidding. Good for you, man.
I was like, I will never let anyone put me in a position where I can only make income if I put up with someone like that. And when I know
Exactly.
you've been in this position too, that where you're smarter than the guy who's the manager, and you're going, what the hell
Exactly.
am I doing working underneath him? And I'm telling you, there's people
Exactly.
out there, everyone's dealt with that. So the only answer to that is to do what you did and to do what I did.
That's right.
Work for
That's
yourself.
right.
So if
That's right.
you don't like the person you're working for, that's on you.
That's right. That's right. That's right. And how many people have an idea or a skill that they can leverage into income independent of being managed, being under somebody's thumb, being on somebody else's watch? Everybody.
Right.
Everybody. Everybody has one idea that if they executed it, it would be a home run.
And why?
Everybody has a skill that if they leverage that skill, they would be in a way better spot.
So
But
why do you
who
think they
go
don't?
ahead?
Why do you think they don't?
They- Man, again, it's that whole that it's the mentality. I mean, cats like you and me, we have some ambition and we also have some courage because I mean, it takes some balls to go out and do your own thing, right? It's very easy to let somebody else write you a check and you know that it's going to be there. You and me, we got to go out, hunt it, kill it, drag it back to the village, skin it, salt it, bury it in the ground, pull it back out, put it on the flame, cook it, cut it, and eat it.
Did you just
But
watch?
folks ain't trying to get down like that on the regular though, Kurt.
You're right. They are. Did you just get done watching Alone? I was just watching that Netflix.
No, I haven't.
I just watched it and I was like, that's a lot of work. But you're right. And I think that they don't have they're afraid and they're afraid of failing. And the thing is like, you know what? I'd rather fail than not try because I know if
That's right.
I won't have any regrets. If I don't try, I'm gonna at the end of the day, like you said, when the end comes, I know I'm gonna sit there and go, damn, I wish I would have given it a try. You know, at
That's
least
right.
try. And but I know I won't have any regrets when I go. And you're
That's right, Kurt.
completely right.
Kurt, let me. You said no regrets. I gotta tell you this story, man.
Please do.
My grandmother, she died. She was like 92. This was maybe 5, 6, 7 years ago. My grandma was my homegirl. And I remember when she was about 85, I asked her, I said, we were real cool. So I'm a preface with that because I asked her when she was 85. I said, hey, I called her Graham. I said, hey, I'd love for you to be around for another 20 years. The reality is you're probably going to be lucky to be around for another 10. And I ain't trying to wish no ill on you, obviously. I'm saying this to ask you the question, where are you at knowing that you're that close to the end? Right? I want her to live for another 30 years, but the reality is, she's gonna be around for another 10. She was around for another 7. And I asked her that. And she said, and Kurt, she said to me, she said, you know what? If I die tomorrow, I'm cool because I lived a full life. I have no regrets. I said, bullshit. Because I did, Kurt. I said, you've been married 3 times. Always fighting with your daughters. And you telling me that you have no regrets, your life was good, and if you died tomorrow, everything would be great. And she said, yep. Who am I to argue?
Well, so can I give you maybe a perspective on your grandma? When I said
Sure.
I have no regrets, it doesn't mean I haven't done things or had regrets in my life. But you put those behind you. You make amends,
Mm,
whatever you got to do, but you don't live with those regrets, and you don't let those regrets define you or stop you from moving forward. And too many people do.
mm.
They let those regrets define you. They let their mistakes define who they are. I refuse to do that. I refuse to let anybody to like you see it happening nowadays with so-called cancel culture. You can't
Oh my God.
if
Yes.
you go back into your history and look about something you said or something, you know what? If they could find recordings of things I said and I did when I was a teenager, I I would be canceled
Bro, for real.
a million times over. But
For
the
real.
I wouldn't let them cancel me because I go, listen, assholes. Every, every one of us have done things that we're ashamed of because we were stupid, because we were kids. That's what kids are. Kids are stupid.
Yeah, we didn't know any better.
Right. Kids do like this comedian, I can't remember her name. She had to apologize because she went to a debutante ball that I guess was somehow related to Confederacy or something back in the day when it first started. She's 50
Uh-oh.
years old. She don't know any of that. She's like, and she comes out and she goes, I'm sorry, I should have been aware. No, you shouldn't. You're 15. Why the hell would you be aware of anything like that? You're worried about what girls are worried about at 15, and it ain't worried about whether a debutante ball was started by a Confederate or not. It was, that's not part of your world, and you shouldn't have to be part of your world. You shouldn't have to worry about what you're saying or doing when you're 12 years old because it might be misconstrued into something else when you become an adult. We are, I remember one of my friends said this to me one time. We had met years later when her and I were like really great friends as teenagers. And I said, I really regret some of the things I said and did back when I was a teenager. And she goes, don't have regrets. She goes, that's what everyone does. That's because you're a kid. That's what kids do. And that's where I got that from, is from her. And I was like, she's so right. Even as adults, the person I was 20 years ago, I wouldn't have liked that guy. I would,
Facts.
because I've grown and I'm not that person anymore. But I also don't want to be held to that standard because that's not who I am. So if you want to say, oh, 20 years ago you were a fuck up, I go, yeah, I was, but that's not who I am now. So
Yep.
point.
Yep.
And
Yep.
and I think this whole need to make everyone, to hold them to this purity test as if we're all supposed to be, you know, Christ-like, according to Christians, that Christ was the only person walking on this earth who was perfect. So if that's the truth, then what the hell are you doing pointing fingers at everybody? Of course we know.
That's the thing, Kurt. Everybody pointing fingers at everybody else instead of pointing fingers at themselves. That's the problem.
Exactly, because if they're pointing them at someone else, then you're not looking at them.
That's right.
Absolutely
That's
right.
right. That's right. You mentioned Christianity. One of my favorite verses in the Hebrew narrative is that whole idea of, oh, uh you telling me to take the splinter out of my eye. Why don't
Right.
you take the log out of yours, right? And that's the thing. It's like, man, don't be hating on me. You
Right.
need to be looking at yourself, because you don't, if you're focusing on the things that you got to get straightened out, you ain't got no time to be worried about what I'm doing.
Exactly. Exactly. But they don't want to see. It's much harder to take care of yourself and make yourself better
That's right.
than to give everyone else
That's right.
advice. And you're absolutely right. In fact, I used that same scripture on a pastor who was on my show, who was I don't want to call him an anti-gay pastor because he doesn't believe in the gay lifestyle, but he wasn't homophobic. He wasn't mean
Yeah, he
about it.
wasn't an asshole about it.
He wasn't. But I said, I go, but here's the problem. I go, only 10% of the world, according to estimates, are gay people. I said, so
Mm-hmm.
even if you have people in your congregation who are gay, it'd only be 10%. I go, why don't you focus on preaching about things like adultery, divorce, you know,
Man, I'm
like that,
telling you.
lying, why don't you teach about that instead of railing against something that doesn't pertain to your congregation? Oh, because if you were to teach about things that pertain to your congregation, they would be pissed at you because they don't want to hear about their problems. They want to hear about other people's problems and point out their sins and stuff. And I go, therein lies the problem itself. So you're absolutely right. It's like, remove the mote from your own eye before trying to remove it from your neighbors. And
That's exactly right. And oh, by the way, if I get the congregation too pissed off, they ain't gonna throw no money in the
right,
collection
exactly.
plate.
I'm gonna have to find.
Yeah, ain't nobody talking about that though.
No, exactly.
We are. We are.
We are, and that's the thing. We need to have more conversations like this that are honest.
That's right.
And I think that is the biggest problem with, in particular, in our country. I think it's around the world, but in our country, is that people who have the mics are not being honest for the most part. 99%
Preach.
are, are
Preach.
are just lying out their ass and they know it. And it
Preach.
goes from everybody, like you have someone like Tucker Carlson on the right who lies and deliberately lies, and then they tell him, oh well, he's not news, he's entertainment. So you admit that he's lying just to let the people who like him, he's going to tell them what they want to hear so they can believe that BS. But then we have Rachel Maddow on the left who's doing the same exact thing. So no one's being honest. And, one of the things I'm going to have a historian on here talk about the 1619 Project. And
Oh yeah,
out of all
yeah.
historians,
That was a great podcast, man. That was a great podcast series.
well, I'm going to tell you the thing is that every historian I've heard so far said this was such a great opportunity to actually talk about slavery in a real world manner, but the person ended up taking liberties with the facts, and so it became
I
dishonest.
read that too. I read that too.
Well, when I have this podcast with the historian on, which will be in a few weeks, take a listen because
I will.
he's another one of us. He's all about the truth, and it doesn't matter how ugly it is. It's like the truth is all that matters to me. If you and I
I
and
heard that.
I say this all the time. If you're willing to lie to yourself, you're willing to lie to everybody else. If you can't be honest
Man,
with
you
yourself,
just
no.
preached the word, brother. That is the truth.
And so if you can't be honest with yourself, why do you expect me to trust you and believe you if you can't even trust
That's right.
And that's
That's right.
what it comes down to. So this is one of the things I wanted to tell you as well. So, you know, a part of what you talk about is race and the fact that you actually want to end racism. I had a woman
Yeah.
contacted me who's a doctorate, who has a doctorate, and she in criminology and I think something else, and she's going around and she goes to corporations and stuff, and she wants to make people feel uncomfortable. And I don't have a problem with people feeling uncomfortable as long as what you're saying is the
Uncomfortable about racism?
right. Like she wants to make white
Okay.
people in particular uncomfortable with it. Now,
Okay.
if it serves a purpose, I'm all for it. But if you're going to say things that not just can't be uh, backed up with facts, but you're
Man,
going to
there you
you're
go.
going to say it just to get a rise out of people because you can.
Yep.
Then you're not allowed to be challenged with what you're saying. So there's no open dialogue to see if what you're saying is true or not. I go, that what purpose do you think you serve? All you're going to do is
Right.
cause greater division. You're not
Right.
getting your point across at that point because people are going to shut down.
Right.
And even when she was talking to me, I was being very I was being very nice to her, because I wanted to have her on the show. I wanted her to be able to give her perspective, but I said, but I'm going to challenge you on some things. Well, she didn't want to be challenged.
You told me that too. So yeah, you keep it real, man. You keep it real.
Because it is about being honest. If we can, if we, people will just be honest all the way through and not just part of it, and that's where the danger lies. You have what's this guy's name? Michael Knowles, I think he is. He's some guy on YouTube.
I ain't hip.
He's like a Dave Rubens and stuff. The problem with
Okay.
Michael Knowles is that he tells a lot of truth, but then he slips the BS in there. And so it's very hard sometimes for people when he's saying the things that these people want to hear. It's hard for them to see the BS because he's slick. And those kind of people are dangerous because now
Mm-hmm.
you get people believing you when they shouldn't be.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what he said here was true. Yes, he did. But what he said here wasn't true. And so you can't
Mm-hmm.
be completely honest because you're trying to feed BS to a certain audience because you know that's your audience and you're trying to make money. I just don't have any time for you. So it's
Ain't
unfortunate.
got no time for that, man. But isn't that how the world is that's just how the world is. And it I I hate to jump back on the Hebrew scriptures, but I mean, even in the New Testament, I think in Acts somewhere. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's Acts. The new believers, the OGs in the faith at that time, they was like, hey, test it out. We might be feeding you a line of stuff. So test it out. And see, even though those people who do what you just described are our thing, individual responsibility, personal responsibility. People, they do. I don't believe that they should just take things at face value, man. Because people do things like that. Don't just wholesale believe what so and so said. Investigate and see if it for real is true.
Right.
Unfortunately, Most people just take what people say wholesale value instead of saying, well, okay, maybe that makes sense to me, but let me check that out. Let me proof text that. Let me see if the facts line up with what this person said. Most people don't do that. Most people don't do that. So they go along and they say, oh, so and so is this, that, and the other thing, not even realizing that they could be perpetuating an untruth, a lie, a myth, or whatever, because they don't take the responsibility themselves to test what has been said by that person.
I think that's done for two reasons. One is because they're lazy and they don't want to go do
Facts.
research themselves, and two, because they like what they're hearing. They feel like, oh, that's got to be true because I like that. So if I like it, it has to be true. And so they like hearing what they want to hear, and so they don't want to ever challenge it. I find people are. I have another guy who I hope that we'll have on the show. He's a mind reader, and he wrote a
Get
book.
out, really?
He wrote a book called Think Like a Mind Reader, and he's a brilliant guy, and he wrote that no matter something to the effect that your your need to believe in a lie is stronger than when I will produce the truth to you. You'll believe that lie because that's what you want to believe, even though I can show you the truth. Because he talks about card tricks, and he says when he does a card,
Yes.
that he can show that like this is not a stacked deck, but he'll say things that make it seem like it is a stacked deck, and so people will believe it's a stacked deck just because of what he said, and vice versa. And so he goes, people will believe it because of what I said. They won't even challenge it, they won't look or anything. You'll just they go, oh, he said these things, so it's got to be it's got to be real. And so that's
Gotta
how
be true.
easily fooled. um but yeah, you're right. It's just it's personal responsibility, and you preach that a lot, and that's what I love about your message. And I
Oh,
think
thanks, Kurt.
people need to hear that, and they need to start implementing it, instead of blaming everybody else about where you're at. And it's unfortunate that more people don't do that. I wanted to let's kind of take a step aside here for just a second, because I want to talk about some of the other points that you make about ending racism. And one of the
Yeah.
things that you say is race is made up. So what do you mean by that?
Man, it's a social construct, man. Jeez, I'm so glad you asked me that. It's made up, man. When I discovered, well, let me say this before I go into the whole rant.
Okay.
If there is race, it is the human race. Ain't black, ain't white, ain't red, ain't yellow, ain't none of that nonsense. You and me, we are human beings together. That's my preface. What I discovered was at around the time when the colonists came to America, or whatever it was called before America was named America, there was a cat. I can't remember his name right off. If I had notes in front of me, I could tell it. But people, whoever is listening, you can go Google this and find it for yourself because it's out there and it's true. A cat was like, let's classify diversity in a hierarchy as opposed to geographically. And it just so happens that around that time, the founding fathers were looking for a way to justify, hey, well, yeah, we put this into, our Declaration of Independence, life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness, blah, blah, blah. But we need enslaved people to do the work that we don't want to do. How do you do that? How do you reconcile that? Oh, you dehumanize folks and you say, well, if we say that white people are superior to black people, then we don't feel so bad enslaving them and having them do what we need them to do to continue making money, putting money in our pocket. W.E.B. Du Bois, Harvard graduate, African American dude, was like, wait a minute, this is some bullshit. He really did. He was like, this is some bullshit, because you're telling me that classifying diversity in a hierarchy is the way to go, but that's not the way to go. I mean, I'm from Africa and I ain't black. You know what I'm saying? Your headphones that you have on your head right now, that's black.
Right.
I am not black.
Nope.
You know what I'm saying? And hey, the picture behind you, that's white. You do not look like that.
That's correct.
You do not look like that, man. You just don't. It's a lie, Kurt Powers. It is a lie. When someone calls me black, it's a lie. When somebody calls you white, that's a lie. It's untrue. And it doesn't take a genius to observe that fact. But yet here we are. And so then you start looking at how that lie gets perpetuated and how it divides. Because if I'm looking at you as a human, I got love for you. But I can spin media, I can spin propaganda, I can program and say, well, you know, these black people, these white people, these red people, if I spin it right, then I can always make sure that I'm up at the top. Well, you say, well, who's the I'm and who's saying all that, blah, 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 blah. And then I say, well, who benefits by perpetuating a lie that race is a thing? And by the way, after W.E.B. Du Bois said that way back in the day, smarter people than I am, not saying I'm a dummy, but saying people who are smarter than me in modern day are saying, you know what, the way that we talk about race and this is nonsense. It's not science. Right. It's not science. People are coming out and saying that. So I'm sitting here saying to myself, well, okay, obviously a lie. Who benefits by perpetuating this lie? And then I started thinking, well, who were the people who came over to what was whatever it was before it was called America? Those people were the political elite, the economic elite, the social elite. So then I start to think, those are the folks who benefit. It's not you and me. I mean, you do maybe a little bit, but not to the extent that the people who are way up the food chain, the old money, those folks, they benefit by perpetuating this lie. You do a little bit, but not a whole lot. And I mean, maybe Oprah does, maybe LeBron does, but you know, not at scale. And so when people talk about follow the money and all and that kind of dialogue, it doesn't take a whole lot of research to start digging into why this is a thing and why we're having these discussions right now. Because the people who benefit from that, when we were talking about way early on in this podcast, when we were talking about, you know, people who have and people who don't have, the people who have, if this system is in place, they continue to have. And if those folks can continue to keep people divided on race, on black and white, we're not united. Is no power to the people if people are divided. No, that focus, that energy, that power that we have is divided. So if folks are divided, well, we can't really make an impact. But man, think about this, Kurt. If we all came together under the banner of humanity, and you ain't white, I ain't black, this dude ain't red, this dude ain't yellow, and that's a lie in and of itself. We just proved that. But if we came together and I looked at you, Kurt, you're a human being, and we in this together. Let's work together to make this place the best that it can be, and you are able to have the your physical needs, your emotional needs, your intellectual needs all taken care of so that we can all thrive and prosper. Well, if everybody did that, well, the folks who have the most would have less.
Right. Exactly. And this is, I guess, this is why I love your message so much, because it's so simple and yet it's so true. And one of the things I get upset with is like that woman I talked about, that
Yeah.
because all she's doing is causing more divide. She's playing into the whole race game and saying, when you say something like, for instance, even when I say this, it always sounds ridiculous to me. I go, who in the world would ever say something so stupid? But they do. When this woman said all white people are they're innate to be the devil, they're not human. Like that's what
People
she
think
said.
that.
Yeah, there are
People
people,
think that.
and she thinks all white people are racist. And I go, it's just, first off, your assumptions are completely baseless and untrue, and yet you don't want to be challenged on this. And I go, but furthermore, you're creating a bigger divide by saying these things. I go, it's no different than the gay community, where there are few, mind you, they are not the majority, they are the minority, just as this woman is a minority, but they'll say all straight people are homophobic. And I go, no, they're not all homophobic. Just because
Right.
they don't want to have sex with you doesn't make them homophobic. It makes them
That's
straight. I
exactly
go,
right.
just like I'm a gay man, I don't want to have sex with women. Does that make me misogynistic? No, it makes me gay. That's what it makes me. So when we conflate these arguments to divide us even further, I have no time for their nonsense. And when I hear a message as true and pure and as honest as yours, I go, why cannot more people get and understand what you just said? That's the answer, you know?
Kurt, Kurt, I struggle with that, to be honest. I mean, that it's a big goal, man. I talked to my dad about this over Father's Day, as a matter of fact, and he's like, "Boy, you got some hard work ahead of you."
Yeah, you do.
And I say to I say to myself, as I talk to people like you, it's like, okay, well, Kurt gets it, and every now and then, a person will pop up and get it, but the majority, I mean, educated people, Kurt, I mean,
Right.
Ivy League
Yes.
people, Kurt, they don't get it. And it doesn't, and trust me, just like you said, it's the truth. So when I'm talking to folks, I'm saying, look, here's where I'm at with this, and this is why, and here over here is why I'm in the space that I'm in, based on science and truth and facts. And even with that, people really have a hard time getting over that hump. And that's how insidious this fucking racism and the systemic nature of it is. It's man, it's so real, but at the same time, so intangible at the same time. And people, it's hard for people to get over that hump, Kurt. And it's discouraging more often than it is encouraging. The only thing that keeps me inspired in that way is I know that I can talk about this and explain it in such a way. You said it yourself, it's just so simple and so pure. I know that I can talk about it and explain it in such a way that I hope enough people to get it, to where a movement can be started. And it's and another thing that I think people don't realize is racism doesn't just affect me, it affects you, it affects everybody. And I would even argue that, if a person is going along with the lie, then they are a racist. Because if a person is basing their viewpoint, their viewpoint, their thought process, the way that they look at the world in terms of black and white, then that's perpetuating that untruth, that lie. So then I would say, if you're participating in that lie, then you are a racist. And I don't mean that in an inflammatory way. I say it to say, I believe that is a truth. And until people, once again, get behind the idea of, man, Kurt Powers, if you really want to get down to the nitty fucking gritty about things, you and me are the same. We're the
Exactly.
same. You break that down into protons and neutrons and atoms and quarks and shit. We're the same. We are the same. I just have a little bit more melanin than you do. That's it.
Uh,
Oh, and by the way, your fingerprint is different, your retina is different, your voice is different, but that's the only difference. It's the only difference. So why are we trying to separate humanity when humanity is humanity? Humanity is humanity, man. And if we could just come together around the idea that we're all the same, we're all humans, we're all in this together, boy, what kind of change could we make in the world? You know, the world, it would be a world where people would complain less.
yeah.
You know, people wouldn't be singled out as much. There would be less violence against different people groups. You know, we Facebook probably wouldn't exist because folks wouldn't be throwing hand grenades at one another over some bullshit. You know, it's so it's if we could just get to that, man, it could do so much, man. It could do so much. But boy, it's oh man, it's just so insidious and so deep and so per I want to say permeating, but that's not the word that I'm looking for. It's just everywhere, and it's literally like coronavirus.
Right.
When I think about it, because if I think about racism as a disease, it's contagious. It 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 limits human potential. It it clouds people's mind and their judgment. It makes people think in very just in very bad ways. And when I wrote that article when I wrote that letter to the editor that broke this down, one of the things that I said was, is there anything that has ever been put into the world that has been such a detriment to humanity than this? And I still haven't had anyone say yes, blah blah blah.
I don't know if it's as much of a detriment, but I would say religion would probably be a close second. If it's,
Oh, now I would not. I am not going to argue with that. I am not going to argue with that at
well,
all.
you
It's definitely a close second.
know, I will say this is that you know, you just broke that down beautifully. And, you know, again, I think there's two challenges. One, the powers that be, they want to keep the,
Yeah,
the race, you know, to play the
they
race
do.
and racism and make sure that we're hating each other. The second challenge is that as a whole, I think, you know, if you go by the Pareto principle, which is
80-20. I love it.
the 80% of the people are small minded, they're jealous, they're bitter, that you know, and they're always looking for an excuse. They're always looking for someone to blame, and they don't want to take that personal responsibility. So it's much easier to blame, you know, like the white guy who's living in the trailer and saying, "Oh well, I'm living here because black man took my job because you know they had to hire somebody."
That's right.
Or a black woman who's sitting there saying, "Well, it's the white people's fault because they're racist," and you know,
Right.
and
Right.
and every other excuse under the sun, not realizing that they're playing into the very hands of these powers
Exactly, man.
and doing exactly what they want them to do and playing them like
Exactly.
and
Exactly.
like you said, some of these people are extremely intelligent and they're still not getting it, you know, and you go,
Still
how?
not getting it. How? How? And I'll even add on to that, Kurt, from my perspective, from my people. After George Floyd, you know, everybody trying to get woke. Everybody trying to get educated, all this kind of stuff, right? But all they're doing is resurrecting all of the racist bullshit and the slavery and all of that. Okay, so yeah, that was a part of America's history for sure. I don't believe that's the way to go about things, because for me, and I'm going to speak for my people, and some of my people will probably disagree with what I'm about to say, but that's fine. They can hop on the podcast and they can say something different. Why aren't or why doesn't the media, why don't we as a people change that narrative? Because if you keep talking about, these poor slaves, the horrors of slavery, and all of that is real for sure. The flip side of that coin, though, is, Kurt, the tenacity, the strength, the resourcefulness, the skills, the resilience, that doesn't get put into the narrative. I mean, come on, man. My people built America, literally.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? And the people who are over here, people who knew how to farm, knew agriculture, some of those skills that those plantation owners and those slave owners, they didn't have those skills. They had some money, they had some wherewithal, but they didn't know how to do those things. And so one of the things that really had them up in arms when you talk about, emancipation and all that kind of stuff was, well, the knowledge base
Right.
isn't here anymore. If we let them go, we can't do what we was doing because the knowledge is gone. They don't know that. They don't know how to do these things. And I say that to say, those are the kinds of contributions that we made to America, that my ancestors made to America, right? To this continent, that doesn't get talked about. It's always, the whips and the chains and the dogs and the this and that. But the flip side of that is, we survived. And even under the worst conditions, we thrived. But nobody's sharing that narrative. Nobody's talking about that. And according to me, if that narrative was put out there, there would be a lot more people in my people group who would have the ambition, who would have the inspiration to go out and do something different than what they're doing. We keep getting the message that you have to depend on. You were this and you were that. And yeah, that was a part of it, but nobody's talking about the flip side. And if somebody talked about the flip side, I think that would help our condition immensely.
I think you're absolutely right. One of the things, like when I read Dr. Kimbrough's book 30 years ago, Think and Grow Rich, A Black Choice,
Mm-hmm.
I told Dr. Kimbrough, because I was asked, why in the world would you pick up that book and read that book? And I said, there was something, the title just grabbed me. It's like a black choice. I want to know, what does this man know? Like, what
Yeah.
does he know? And I got the answer I was looking for. And what I realized is like, you and I talked about previously over the phone about Madam C.J. Walker.
Yeah.
When you read about her story, I mean, along with the other stories that are in there, but hers stuck out
Yeah.
particularly because she was born just shortly after her parents were freed, and her parents didn't have a nickel, not literally did not have a nickel to their name, and
Literally.
no place to live, and were kicked off the plantation. And this woman, not only was she black, but she was a woman. So even when she was, and when she took her business idea to the black men who were prosperous, who were gaining wealth and stuff, they didn't want to have anything to do with it because she was a woman. This woman becomes a millionaire. She wasn't good looking. So the lady she worked for didn't want to hire her as a salesperson because she wasn't good looking enough. So she
That
didn't
is the
stop.
story.
She did not stop. She's like, I'm going to do this. And she did it and became a millionaire. I go, who in the world today can sit there and make an excuse and go, oh, I can't do
Preach,
it. You,
preach,
there are no excuses,
preach,
you know, you
preach. There's
can't.
no excuses.
Right. And so that's what I loved about Dr. Kimbrough's book was that he basically told you stories that you can't come up with excuses that would match what these people had to go through to become successful. So all you're doing, you have to realize, oh, it's me then. I'm making excuses. I'm the reason why I'm not where I'm supposed to be. Not because of any situation, not because of my conditions, not because of anything other than because of me. At some point, we have to understand, like, yes, look, I tell people, I go, I'm white, but I lived in the projects. Now, mind you, there were black
Really?
and white projects. Yeah, they were separated, believe it or not. But I grew up in these projects. But I knew, I was like, I don't
Like
know.
trailer parks?
No, projects, brother. I'm talking about
Really?
projects. Yes, they had an entire section of white projects, just like the black projects. There's just one on one side of the railroad tracks and the other one's on the other side of the railroad tracks.
Oh, the other side of the tracks.
Exactly. But there wasn't any difference other than that. And I told people, like, look, I knew when I was a kid that I wanted better for myself. And
Yeah,
I
man.
wasn't going to let the fact that I was poor or that my parents were poor, because you said earlier, you said, is it the parents' responsibility to teach kids about financial literacy? My parents didn't have financial literacy. They didn't know what to teach me because they didn't know it themselves.
Yeah.
Obviously,
Yeah.
I'm not blaming my parents. I'm just saying that when that goes through generations, and that's black or white, it goes down generation after generation after generation. Nobody ever learns, and so we all end up staying poor. But I refused to do that. I was going to learn and find out what it took to get the hell out of here because I knew I didn't want this for me, and I did that.
Hell yeah.
So, and that's not to pat myself on the back. That's just to say that, when you have someone like, how can I sit there and go, well, I couldn't do it because, my parents are poor. Like,
That's right.
no matter what I go through, I didn't go through anything like Madam C.J. Walker went through. Nothing. I think I can't. You just can't say you did because you didn't. So anything else is an excuse.
That's exactly right, Kurt. I told you when we first talked, book changed my life in that way was Black Millionaires. Read this book, the first 7 or 8. I should have prepared better to speak to this better. That book changed my life because, to your point about Madam C.J. Walker, there were other folks who did the same thing.
Right.
And come on, man, when you talk about the worst conditions, I mean, back in the day, if you made $1 million, some colonists could be like, oh, I'll take that.
Right.
And what's your legal recourse? None.
Right.
So not only was there the threat of it talk we can talk today about taking a risk to be successful. Back then, the risk to be successful was exponentially greater.
Yes.
Exponentially greater. There was no recourse. Black Wall Street. People could literally roll up in your town and burn the motherfucker down, and you couldn't do anything about it except try and grab what you could and try to escape with your life. That's what those people were dealing with during that time, but yet they became millionaires. I said it in my TED Talk. There is no better time in the history of America for you to go out and get yours. Because guess what? People just ain't gonna roll through and burn your stuff down. People just ain't gonna roll through and take what you have and you not have any legal recourse. Man, all the money that became available to Black people after George Floyd is ridiculous. You can't tell me that you can't come up with an excuse that I will accept.
Right.
You can't. You cannot. You cannot. If those people back then could come out of that environment and go into an environment that was probably that much better and still become millionaires, I have, and this is me talking to myself, I have no excuse. Not one, not a excuse, not one, not even a half excuse, not even a quarter of an excuse, not a iota of an excuse. Have none. Go out there and get yours. Tell me Jay-Z, billionaire. He could have had all kinds of excuses. Nope. Oprah, Maya Angelou. I mean,
Right.
how many modern day examples can we even pull out and say, well, I mean, Oprah was raped, Maya Angelou was raped, Jay-Z was in the hood. I mean, they had excuses. Nah, I refuse to use that crutch. I choose to excel. I choose to do better. I choose to go out and get mine. And what happened? They got theirs.
And I think it's important, it's extremely important that people understand, like you take someone like Michael Jordan, for instance, and they'll say, well, he's rich because he could play basketball, because he had talent. No, Michael Jordan didn't become the greatest basketball player because he just was born with the greatest. He worked his ass off, worked his ass harder than anybody else out there. And that's what made him the greatest basketball player. So
That's right.
you can have skills. Oprah Winfrey, you know, Oprah Winfrey didn't come out of the gate as the best talk show host in the world, you know?
That's
No,
right.
not by a long shot. In fact, I think she almost got fired or did get fired at one point. And and here she comes out and she ends up becoming the greatest talk show host of all time with the biggest audience. And I'll tell you, there's a point where I had so much respect for Oprah. Now, she's done some things I wasn't really fond of a couple times, but overall, she did something that back in the, I want to say it was the 90s, I think it was.
Yeah, the early 90s.
Yeah, when Geraldo Rivera, the first guy, smashed one of the other guests in the head with a chair, all of a sudden, all these talk show hosts went that direction. All of them.
Jerry Springer still on the air, bro. How is that even possible?
Because because people are stupid enough to watch that stuff. I watched one, like not even one full episode, and I felt my brain cells dying as I was watching it. So I was like, I can't
Oh my
watch it.
God, ridiculous. You know his bodyguard got a talk show out now too.
Are you serious?
I promise you, man. I said, wow. And it's the same format, same format. Ridiculous. But to your point, yeah, people eat it up. Go figure.
And so Oprah, she went that way for like a week or two. It might have been a little longer, but it wasn't long. And she just said, I don't want to do this. And so she went back.
Right.
She's like, I'm not going to do that kind of show. And she outlasted all of them. You know,
That's right.
now that you bring up Jerry Springer, he was, he was the mayor of Cincinnati.
Really?
Yeah, he was mayor of Cincinnati. He hired a prostitute and he got caught. You know how he got caught? He paid her with a check.
How? Wow. Should have paid it with some Bitcoin. You can't trace that. At least that's what they say.
Yeah, that's what they say. I remember though Jerry Springer in his show, every show he would say, oh, be kind to yourself and to each other. I'm like, okay, so you just had everyone beat the hell out of each other on your stage.
Come on, man.
And everyone be kind. Are you kidding me? You know?
Come on. Come on. Ridiculous.
Yeah.
Ridiculous. But you know what, Kurt? I think that's part of the problem too. I don't even watch TV. I don't. I'm every now and then. And when I say every now and then, I'm talking maybe I will watch something every 3 weeks or once or twice a month. I don't watch TV. How many people who said that? I want to say it was Zig. No, it was Jim Rohn. It was Jim Rohn. Jim Rohn. One of the things that keeps me positive is I listen to people like Jim Rohn, Les Brown, Brian Tracy, Tony Robbins, and the OGs really. Think and Grow Rich, As a Man Thinketh. The OG stuff, because the new schoolers are basically just saying what the old school said. They're just saying it in a different way, right? But I listen to these cats, and that keeps me positive too. And Jim Rohn, he was in one of his talks, he talked about if you turned off the TV, how much time could you gain to create wealth? And I said, good point. I mean, shoot, on any given Saturday back in the day, I'm watching college football from like noon to about midnight. You know what I'm saying? 12 hours watching college football and probably 12 hours watching professional football on a Sunday. That's freaking a day,
Yep.
a whole day that I'm just not even being productive. I'm consuming. I'm not creating anything. And so, and I say that to say, I think that's part of the problem with folks not going out and getting theirs. Folks working for the weekend, they grab their, they 12 pack, they, 24 pack, whatever. And they just sitting there and basically wasting time. And it's like, and going even back to the stimulus check, how we was talking about, it's like, man, if you could, if you take that free time and that free money to create something that has value for society, well, you is very likely that you're going to win. And the work part, even like how you were talking about before, ambition. How many stories have we heard? People come over to America, can't even speak English.
Right. Exactly.
Can't even speak the language. Come over, work their ass off, and guess what? They're the millionaire next door.
Right. Well, you hit on it because one of the things I like to say, I didn't coin this. I don't even remember who did, but I heard, I was like, damn, that's powerful. Whoever it was said, if you're living for the weekend, you ain't living. And
That's
that was like,
right.
that's right. But you know what? Here's the thing. It's like I remember watching football, college football on Saturdays, watching pro football on
Yep.
Sundays, just so because everybody, all the guys get together, we talk about the games and everything. And I go, I don't want to do this anymore because it's not benefiting me in any way. So when nowadays when they go, hey, did you see that game? Nope, I haven't seen a game in years. I don't know because I don't care. I go, how much money did that game make
Don't
you?
care. That's right.
How much when you were sitting there all day Saturday, all day Sunday watching football, how much money do you make watching it? Oh yeah, nothing.
That's right.
So
That's right.
you know,
Unless you went on what's that DraftKings
yeah,
or something like that. If you threw a bet on it, you might have made some money.
or you might have lost some money.
Or you might have lost a bunch.
So you're absolutely right. I think we need to quit worrying about being the cool person and be able to
That's right.
with our friends and be up on all these distractions, like, and it's not just sports, it's all it's television, it's whatever is
Everything.
going on, and everybody's like, oh, did you see this, did you see that, and like, it,
Hanging out, going to the bar, partying,
right,
whatever the distraction is.
it's not to say that you shouldn't have fun and you can't have distractions
Exactly.
or mindless
Absolutely.
entertainment from here and there, but like you said, you watch TV once every 3 weeks or something, you might watch something that's that you want to watch.
Usually a documentary, to be quite
Right.
honest.
Yeah, but you know what? You got to be careful because some of those documentaries, they all have their
Facts.
own agenda. So that's like,
Facts.
you speak about reversing the effects of racism. So how do we reverse the effects of racism?
By understanding that we're all in this together. We're all human. To reverse the effects is not to be the Bible thumper, because I'm not that guy,
Right.
but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. So you start to reverse the effects by renewing the mind. One of my favorite quotes in the history of quotes, Yoda, Empire Strikes Back.
Yep.
And Luke Skywalker is trying to get the X-wing no, actually he was balancing the rocks and Yoda was on his head or something like that. And it was that. And then they were talking about trying to at that time the X-wing kind of sunk, because remember Luke Skywalker, he came in and he landed and the X-wing was in the swamp, and then during that time the X-wing just sank right on down into the swamp, and he's like, ah. And Yoda's like, well, just, basically use the force and get it out. And he's like, oh, and he tried and he kind of got it out, but then it like sunk back down. He's like, I can't do it. And then Yoda like gets the X-Wing fighter out of the swamp, and Luke Skywalker like, oh my God, I can't believe this has happened, blah, 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 blah. And R2-D2's like, and all the stuff, right? And Yoda says, you must unlearn what you have learned.
Wow. Yep.
And man, I have that saved on my I have it saved on YouTube because I watch it from time to time. So when I do watch something video, it's usually that.
Right.
And it's so true, Kurt. We have to unlearn what we have learned, what we've been programmed to believe is real. And you using our self-talk, how we talk to one another, the vocabulary that we use, the words that we use, just like we talked about a little earlier, man. You're not white, I'm not black. Those are lies. We have to speak truth, and we have to accept that the truth is the truth, whether we like it or not. And one of the things that really changed my paradigm, like for real changed my paradigm, was when I did an ancestry DNA test. And I was like, oh, 74% of my DNA, Africa, Nigerian, Congo. And I mean, of course, I'm over here in America. So, of course, there's some Scottish, and of course, there's some British. And of course, right? I can speak truth to a person who calls me black. So, you and I, and during this podcast, we've used that. I did not realize how hard it is to retrain the brain in that way. But I can tell you, so Kurt, if you call me black, I can tell you, I can correct you. I don't have to be an asshole about it.
Right.
I can correct you. I can correct the error and say, no, I'm not black. Actually, I'm a nice shade of caramel.
There you go.
Right. And oh, by the way, I'm a human being. My ancestry is African, connected to the region of Nigeria and the Congo. That's truth. When I discovered that, when I learned that about myself, that empowered me to be able to say, race, I just can't get down with it. And if a person who is racist can't get down with the fact, like I said, that we're all in this together and we're all humans, man, I can't even get down with you. Right. And so to answer your question completely about how do we reverse the effects, it's changing the mindset. It's denouncing the lie and embracing the truth, and then using the right vocabulary, speaking truth into existence, just like the lie was spoken into existence, to reverse those effects. And even when I was talking about the narratives about slavery and things like that, it's those kinds of things that have to be flipped in order for racism, the effects of racism, to be reversed. It's about people saying, this hierarchical way of looking at race is error. We need to be looking at it geographically, like how it was before the switch happened, right? So we're literally talking about reversing it back to the truth, as opposed to, again, perpetuating that lie. Reversing the effects is the renewing of the mind, Kurt.
I love that. I think you just, I'm sure this is what you're doing. And I think that maybe this is where, I'm not going to say this is where the movement will start, but I hope with whoever,
I hope so.
I hope whoever listens to this or watches this is that they do what you just said. I'm going to make a conscious effort that if anyone refers to me as white, I'll say, I'm not white. That's not correct. I'm human. And that's who I am.
Bro,
And Imagine this. Imagine if every time we had a box to check whether we're Caucasian or whether we're black or Hispanic or Asian or other. Imagine if everyone put other and wrote in there human.
Exactly, man. Exactly.
Can you
And why is it that that stuff is on the form in the first
right,
place?
exactly. And if we were all to do that, if we were all to check other and write in human, they would get rid of those boxes. We would force them to get rid of them because you're absolutely right. There's no need for them to be there. They'll sit there and tell you, well, the reason why I have it is so that we know how to divvy up money for this or that. And it's like, no, you don't need to divvy up money when you treat everybody fairly. When you treat everyone like a human, brother, you're brilliant. I love
I
you.
appreciate that, Kurt. Thank you. I will accept that compliment. Thank you.
You should.
But you know what though, Kurt? That's what I'm saying though, man. To me, in my mind, it's so simple.
It is.
In my mind, it's so simple. And when I talk about people have, people having, we're all the same, but we're individual in the fact that, we have our own ideas, we have our own retina, we have our own fingerprint, we have our own voice. When I went through the TEDx and I did what I did, and I said to myself, you know, this is my thing. I is as difficult as this will be, this is my thing because it's the thing that comes easy to me. This is the thing that I understand, and I don't understand why it's any other way. So I'm the crazy dude who believes that I can do what I say that I'm going to do because to me, even though it's hard, it's simple. And so I will talk and tell and yell to whoever wants to listen because if only one, man, if only one person gets it, but more people have gotten it since I've been saying this, so that's encouraging.
Right.
But even if one person got it, it's worth it.
Well, I want to tell you something. You're on to it because here's the thing. One of the things I've realized in my life is that the answers are almost always simple. Almost all.
Exactly.
In fact, I can't think of one instance where when you're looking for the answer, it's plain as day, and you go, "Holy crap, that was simple." Now, but people
Mm-hmm.
mistake simple for easy, and I go, "It's
Right.
simple is very rarely easy." But that's
Got that
why no
right.
one does it because it's not easy. But if you want to do it right, do the simple thing. I tell people all the time, like, because I've been a personal trainer most of my life, they always go,
Yeah, you look swole. I wasn't gonna mention it, but you do look swole on the camera. I ain't gonna lie.
because I look at myself because I wear double extra large shirts because I don't like tight shirts. And so I always go, God, I look like I've shrunk. But anyway, but thank you. I'll take that compliment. But
Hell yeah.
I go, if you want to get big, you deadlift, you squat, and you bench. Those are the three basic lifts. They're the simple lifts, but you know what? Two of those three people don't want to do. Why? Because they're hard as hell. That's why. No,
Squad day always sucks.
yeah, and people will come up with every excuse. I've had 20 years. My knees. You're 20 years old. You ain't done shit with your knees yet. What are you talking about?
Come on, man. Exactly.
They like, now they'll bench because they like the whole the show off muscle.
Right. Everybody like the bench.
but squat and deadlifts they don't want to do it. And I said that's why
Mm.
most people out there have skinny ass legs and no back because
Yup.
they don't want to do it. And I go, but that's the answer. And so you can read muscle magazines from now until the day you die, and you're never going to find the secret to bigger muscles because there is no secret. It's that. And so, and the answer to everything in life is simple. But like you said, it's not easy. So doing the right
No.
thing, like you, and I want to emphasize this because it's important because you made this point. You can tell people and get the message across to them without being an asshole. So if someone
That's
says,
right.
well, you're a black man, and you go, I'm not a black man. Don't take that approach. If I sit there and go, I'm not a white man, who the hell you calling white? They're shutting down. They haven't heard anything. They're never going to hear anything else I got to say after that. And say, I understand why you would call me that, but figure out what you want to say and say it politely and nicely so they get the message. And that's so imperative, and people lose that because everyone wants to be self-righteous. Everybody wants to put other people down, and it's like, knock this shit off. I That's one of the biggest issues I have with some people in the trans community, because they're not the
Mm.
majority, they're the minority, and they want to make a big stink out of someone by calling them the wrong pronoun. And most people don't call them the wrong pronoun to be a dick. They just don't know, and they don't think about it because they've never been privy to that before, and so they don't know what to say. And then this person will make a big fucking deal out of it, and I go, shut up. You know, like they did this to Piers Morgan when he asked a question because he was being genuine. Like he supports trans people, but he asked this trans person a question, and she took offense to it as if he should have already known the answer. And I go, how the hell was he supposed to know the answer? He's genuinely
Exactly.
trying to find out so that he can educate people, and you wanted to be a bitch about it. And so anytime,
Exactly.
regardless of whether you're black, if you're white, if you're gay, if you're straight, if you're trans, whatever the hell, if you're going to be a dick, nobody wants to talk to you.
Nobody.
So, but everybody wants to, be up in arms and be offended about everything. And I'm going, you look, if you're offended, it's not me you're offended with, it's the truth. And
Come on, man.
if you're offended with the truth, that's something you got to work on, not me.
That's what I'm saying. That ain't on me. You got to work that out.
Exactly.
You got to work that out, man, bro. You was preaching. Because that is so true. And I'll tell you what, Kurt. I've fallen victim to that myself. I, man, I'm old school. I'm over 50, so I can call myself old school, right? And
Oh,
this whole thing with the pronouns is new information for me.
right.
When I had to when I for the TED, I had to write a bio and put in describe the talk and come up with a title and all of that kind of stuff. And there was a forum that they gave us to do this. One of the things I was on the phone never had to think about it for, but on the forum they was like, what pronoun do you prefer? And I'm like, what do you mean, what pronouns? I mean, I literally didn't know, Kurt. I'm like, what do you mean, what pronouns? What are you talking about?
Well, you're from Indiana too, and I mean, and no offense.
Well, I live in Indiana. I ain't from Indiana. I'm not gonna claim that. No disrespect to the Hoosiers, but I'm not claiming that.
Okay, I'll rephrase that. You live in Indiana, but the thing is what a lot of people don't understand is that not everyone lives in a metropolitan city on the coast, and so they don't have access to this. This isn't they're not privy to this on a daily basis, and so this is all new to them. So treating them as if they should already know this shit is bullshit. It's like
I agree, man.
people, when I came out as gay many years ago, people asked me the most ridiculous questions, but I never got offended because I knew they weren't being smartasses. They were asking because they truly wanted to know. They,
Right.
like they were like, well, which one's the man, which one's the woman? It's like, we're both men. What do you mean? But they weren't.
Right. But they didn't know.
They didn't know because they don't know what the dynamics are, and they really wanted to know. So what am I going to do? Act like an asshole and go, "What are you trying to say, man?" I'm not going to gain any friends. He's not going to like gay people because I act that way towards him. So why don't I take the opportunity to allow him to know a gay person that he can like, and then have a better opinion of gay people overall. And that's the approach we should be taking, whether we're
Agreed.
straight, trans, black, white, Asian, whatever, that we take that approach and going, let's try to gain a friend instead of an enemy.
Right. Let me say two things, Kurt.
But please.
One is, in situations like that, I always use the language of help me understand.
Yes.
I actually put myself in the position of ignorant. And in fact, I am ignorant. And that's not speaking to myself disparagingly. I literally don't know. Therefore, I am ignorant of the fact. Please help me understand. So usually when things like that come up, I will tell the person, help me understand, because that then puts me in a subordinate position and put that person in an authoritative position, because in fact it's true, that person is the authority on said subject.
Right.
So please help me understand. I do my best to do that. Secondly, what you just said, listen, when you replay this podcast, you said black, white, Asian. Why do we say Asian, but we say black, white?
Right.
Shouldn't we say African, European,
Right.
South Asian?
Dude, that's a great point. That is a great point. Wow. I'd never thought about that.
Exactly, man. And that's how insidious this shit is.
Yes.
Everybody, every other people group doesn't get the white black.
Right. The
You
color.
and I do.
Color. Yeah. We
Every
don't.
yeah, exactly. We get color.
Right.
Asians are referred to as Asians. Hispanics are referred to as Hispanics.
Right.
South Asians, well, some people call them South Asian, some people call them Indian. I was corrected by a person who I called Indian, who said, well, South Asian. I was like, oh, fuck, actually, you're right. That is South Asia. You know what I'm saying? So it's, why is it that you and I are black and white, but
Everybody.
that person is Hispanic,
Right.
that person is Asian,
That's
that
a
person is indigenous or Native American, right?
great point. Absolutely great point. I want to say one thing to what you just said. You said that you ask, in a way to where you're a subordinate. And that is something that's rare because I do the same thing. If I don't know, I want to learn.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not going to talk as if I know something when I don't. But too many people out there want to act like that, they can't show any weakness, and they think that's a weakness by showing that you don't understand something. And so they refuse to admit they don't understand it. So they'll try to act like they do, and then they get in a fight because they don't know what the hell they're talking about, and they're never going to
Exactly.
learn. So so kudos to you because again, that's what, to me, in order for this world to become a better place, that's what people have to do. They have to be humble. They
I
have
agree.
to say, I don't know everything and I would love to learn. Please teach me, instead of like acting as if they already know when they don't.
I agree, Kurt.
We got to change the world. You know what? I'm going to tell you something. You and I are going to talk
We
after.
are going to change the world. What are you talking about? We got it. We are.
We are, and I'm going to tell you something. Dr. Dennis Kimbrough sent me his book because I there was one book of his I didn't have. He sent it to me, and he said, and Dr. Kimbrough is not the kind of man who just says empty things. He doesn't do that.
Mm,
So if he says
okay.
something, he means it. And he wrote a special note to me. He said, "Let's start a revolution." And I took that to heart, and I'm going to be talking to him, and I'm going to tell him, listen, I met this fine young man. He says he's over 50. I don't know about that, but because
Ah,
he's younger. But I said, I'm going to meet this fine young man that I think would be part of our revolution. So
yes, man. The revolution will be televised
it will be. Should we make?
on YouTube.
Oh, I was going to say we could do pay per view, and then we could become millionaires.
Man, hey, but you want to know something, though, Kurt? To that point about revolutions, and yeah, I would say a movement, revolution. I told you I talked to my dad over the weekend. It's Father's Day, right? So
Right.
if a person has a father, if the father's in their life, if the father's still alive, well, you show up on Father's Day, or you at least give him a phone call. And we were talking about a lot. We talked a lot about what we have been talking about. And one of the things that he said about movements and revolutions, and we've had the conversation before Father's Day weekend about, where are the revolutionaries? Where are the people who spark movements? I'm shitty because the old girl who's one of the co-founders of BLM is like, well, I'm not gonna do BLM anymore because I'm gonna write a book and I'm gonna do this and I'm gonna make that money.
Right.
my dad was like, you know what? We don't have those people like Malcolm and Martin and Mandela and Kennedy and Gandhi. Don't nobody want to take the bullet.
No, that's the thing. There's a couple reasons. One of them because they're always thinking about the money ahead of time. I was only joking, but I mean,
Mm,
but they're always thinking about the money. I like, oh, if I all I need to do is get my name out there, then I can bank on this somehow.
I
And
can monetize it and bank on it.
the other thing is, in this culture now, I wouldn't want to take the reins of BLM or any other movement right now if unless it was my movement because they'll look for anything. Like if you say anything that they don't like, all of a sudden they're going to go back and check for everything they can that you said and did from the
To
time you
discredit you.
discredit you and get you out. And
Yep.
so that's why it would BLM. You don't really see a leader.
Right.
There's two issues with that. One is if you don't have the head, you can't chop the head off, so you can't kill the movement. But the other thing is, if you don't have a head, you don't have a direction to go in either. So then you just have, so,
Exactly.
yeah. So this is really, it's a weird way to start a revolution, and that's, I talked about this on one of my other podcasts with the historian Carl Kreisman, and we were talking about postmodernism, and that,
Oh yeah.
and you know, when all you're talking about is anarchy, that's not an answer. It's like if you say everything in this, all systems are oppressive, then there's no system, and without a system you can't have a society. So we have to accept the fact that there's going to be certain liberties that have to be given up in order for us to be able to live together. And if you're not willing to do that, then you can't be part of a society. And and it's ridiculous to think otherwise, and then you just have complete chaos, which I don't
Yeah,
know.
you can't burn it down.
Right, you can't. I mean,
As much as I love to burn it down, you can't burn it down. You just can't.
you're going to burn it down, you better have something better to build in its place. But they don't have any answers.
That's exactly right.
So, yeah.
That's exactly right. So Kurt, therein lies the thing, right? Because I look at what was created by the founding fathers and all that. In principle, is not bad
Right. Well,
as long as everybody gets to participate.
and I think that was one of the things I had discussion with another gentleman on one of the other episodes about whether kink belonged in pride, and he kept talking about
Oh, interesting.
the colonialist, and I said, here's the thing. There's problems with the system that the colonialists set up. I said, but one of the things that they did that no one else has done in the history of mankind that I'm aware of is that in the system it gave those people who were minorities the ability to speak up and to rise up. I said because in any other time in history, if a minority tried to speak up or rise up, they would just simply squash you. You'd be done. There would be no rising up out of the ashes unless you built an army, secretly that
Mm,
that could fight against them. But they weren't going to give you those rights. They weren't going to allow you to speak about those rights. They would just crush you if they found out about you. I said, this system allows you to do that. And I said, unless we think that any minority group got to where they're at by themselves and that there wasn't help from the colonialists, I go, you're kidding yourself. I said, whether it's from the civil rights movement, whether it's from the women's rights movement, whether it's from the gay rights movement, they none of those things would have happened if there weren't people on the other side who said, hey, we need to help these people because that's the right thing to do. So the system allowed it. Now again, I'm not justifying all the bad things that went with it, but for the first time in our history of mankind, we have a system that allows us to better ourselves, to rise up and to become equals. And so there has to be something said about the system to where you don't trash the whole thing. And
agreed, Kurt. And I think that's what people don't realize is the system can work for you.
right.
The
Well,
system can work for you.
according to the postmodernists, it's like the system is, it oppresses everyone. I go, yeah, but if you think about it, I go, do they understand the hypocrisy of their philosophy? I said, because even they're oppressive. To think that everything is oppressive. If I don't think that way, now you're being oppressive to me. I go, everything's oppressive. To some extent. If you're going to live in a society where you have to live together, there's going to be some oppression. We're not going to be able to do everything that we want to do because we have to learn to live together. We have to have certain rules and certain laws that we all agree to adhere by. Otherwise, again, you just have chaos, and that's not a society. And in one of the things I made a point about kink being in pride, I said, there's not a hedonistic society that ever succeeded, that ever stayed around. I go, they all failed because when
Every single one of them.
every one of them, because when you say there are no rules anymore, then there's no more society. It falls apart. So you know there's a happy medium that we can find and go, let's fix this thing, let's make it as great as we can make it, and let's work together to do that rather than just keep complaining. Because if if you only focus on the problem and not the solutions, then you're just bitching, because
Come on, man.
you're never going to find a solution because you're not looking for them. You're sitting there bitching. That's all you're doing.
Just
You
like we talked about it. Go ahead.
you find solutions, and that's what I love about you. I mean, the things you said,
Dude, and
man, damn, that's good.
I appreciate that, man. And I will say, I tell people all the time, if if you're not working on a solution, you have no right to bitch. That's why I do what I do, because I like to complain. But I can't complain if I ain't trying to do nothing about what I'm complaining about.
I
And I tell these young kids, I told my son one time, my son, he rides motorcycles. He's all about that life. He does the wheelies and the whole shit.
Oh wow.
And he's in. If you've ever been to Michigan, the roads are shit. They
Yeah.
really are. They're terrible. They're terrible. So for someone like my son who rides motorcycles, two wheels, and he's talking about potholes and bad roads and how that affects his experience and how it puts him at more risk than in other places, I get it. I tell him though, you're bitching to me, I can't do nothing about it.
Right.
You can reach out to your city council people, your county council people, your mayors, your state legislators, and those folks who can actually do something about the thing that you're bitching about. So don't I ain't trying to hear it. I don't ride motorcycles. I mean, I care about you, but I don't care about that.
Right. You're absolutely right.
What
That's I'm
what people need, well, I was just going to finish the thought. What people need to understand is that it's about us, we the people, the
right.
people who are the people who we put into positions, who we vote into these positions. They work for us. So if there's a problem, go talk. You complain to those people, and you hold those people accountable. And those people they have to be accessible by default. Now, granted, are you going to get on the phone and talk to Joe Biden? Probably not. Are you going to be able to get on the phone and talk to, Pelosi or any of these other? Probably not. But you can maybe stumble upon your city council person at a restaurant or at the car wash or wherever, and you can hold them folks accountable. And then those folks have to hold the people who are above them accountable, and the people who are above them, they have to hold them accountable. But nobody is doing anything until the squeaky wheel always gets the oil.
That's the
So
truth.
unless you squeaking,
That,
ain't none happening.
that's exactly right. But again, like you said, you've got to find solutions. Otherwise, don't bitch, because you don't have any right to bitch if you're not looking for solutions. So I agree
That's
with
right.
you.
Don't
Now,
be part of the problem.
exactly. I always have a hard time saying that because I don't know if you ever watched South Park, but
I
there's
used to back in the day.
Stan's dad said something to the effect, because he was driving an electric car. He goes, "Yeah, I want to be part of the solution instead of part of the problem." It's like, so every time I hear that, I always hear that tone. Um, so here's what I want to say to all you out there who are listening to us or watching us. I know Ant would agree with me when I say this. Don't just believe what we said today. Challenge whatever you've heard that you
Absolutely.
and do your research and see if we're honest and see if what we're saying is true. Then you can make a choice for yourself. Take responsibility. If you find what we're saying is true, then jump on the bandwagon with us and help change the world, because it does really start
Hell
with
yeah.
one person, and that's all it start that's all you need, and then it just grows. And if people start putting a value on honesty and truth and starting with that with themselves, there's no telling where we could take this. I mean, we could change the world literally. And so
We can change the world, Kurt Powers. We can.
can, and we will, seriously, because we have to. The alternative is bleak, so we have to. So, and I really enjoyed having you on the show. I definitely want to have you on the show again for sure. And
I'm so glad you asked. I'm so glad you asked. I enjoyed this too, Kurt. This was great. This was a great conversation.
it was, and I'll tell you what, you're welcome to come on. We can talk about anything, because I know you're that person. Like, there's not a topic we couldn't talk about, and find solutions to whatever it is we're talking about. So yeah.
That's right.
Well, thank you again for being on the show. It was a great pleasure, honestly. And I might be doting too much, but seriously, I just had a great time tonight. So thank you very much.
I did too, Kurt. Thank you for inviting me. I enjoyed myself immensely. I mean, damn, we're like 2 hours. We're over 2 hours into this,
Yeah,
and I,
uh,
I, I could go for another hour,
I
right?
know.
But we gotta cut it off. But that's how good the conversation was, and future conversations will be. And you know what? To be honest, we don't necessarily. I love to hop on the mic with you again, but I want to keep in contact with you
Absolutely. Yeah,
offline.
I completely agree, because I got some things I want to talk to you about. So that will necessitate that we stay in touch. So
For
all right.
sure.
All right, folks. So listen, thanks a lot for joining us, and I hope you enjoyed this as much as Ant and I enjoyed it, and that you got something from it, and maybe you can join the movement that we're gonna get started here. So
Hop on the love train, y'all.
we'll have to sing that song sometime. So until next time, take care, be safe, and I don't think you have to wear your mask anymore. So don't worry, just be safe. Later.